Some things just go together. Wine and cheese, flowers in springtime, and yes, books and bottles. We pair your favorite author with your favorite drink. Your host of Books and Bottles, Benita Johnson.
Hello and welcome to Books and Bottles. I'm your host, Benita Johnson. You know I'm excited to be here. This is another episode where we introduce you to your favorite author and their work. And we also pair with the wine and spirit. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. So just put a pin in that. I'm coming back. So as you know, this is a taped show. But today is the perfectly fitting day to introduce my guest here tonight. It is National Read a Book Day, September the 6th. So mark that in your calendar for next year. So when September the 6th comes around, you're going to know. I'm putting it out in the universe. We're going to do something real big for Books and Bottles that day. So I really appreciate you being here for another episode. If you've been with us before, thank you for coming back. If this is your first time, you're in for a treat. Tonight is a very timely conversation with the amazing Dr. Natasha Patterson. The name of her book is Combating Institutional Racism Through Mentorship. So since we don't have a wine expert today, I'm going to do my little plug of our wine because I'm going to be sipping. I'm just going to be real with you people. But this is a great wine, right? So this is my newest baby, Cedar Hill. Y'all see it? And Cedar Hill, Anacostia Red. Cedar Hill is the home of abolitionist Frederick Douglass and is right here in Washington, D.C. in Anacostia. And I think it's a perfect tie-in with the book that we're reading today. So I'm going to put on these specs for a second and just read the little introduction about Dr. Patterson. Dr. Natasha Patterson is currently a professor of public health at the College of New Jersey in Ewing, New Jersey, teaching leadership, health education, and health policy courses for undergraduate and graduate students. Dr. Patterson has been teaching in higher education for over 15 years. Prior to teaching, she worked in the field as a health educator, program coordinator for a community-based organization, and a research program manager for a world-renowned cancer research center. Her current research interests include social justice social justice and health disparities, and student engagement and success. Dr. Patterson is the founder and CEO of On the Journey to Better LLC, a specialized consulting firm created to provide services and solutions that will enable individuals and organizations in the higher education space to improve in various ways. Wow. Without further ado, I'd like to bring on Dr. Natasha Patterson.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome to Books and Bottles.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. So this is so timely in so many ways, right? We're just on the dark side of the Supreme Court doing what they did in education. And so we do need to, figure out some solutions to help maneuver through this new space. So I really appreciate you for being here. So before we jump into the book, because this book does touch on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I just want to make sure our audience know what those terms mean. I think, we pretty much have it down pat what diversity means, right?
Right.
But it's the equity and inclusion, especially that equity that we, are we certain what that is? So if you don't mind, can you start out just kind of giving us the definition of those three very important terms?
Right. So we know diversity is bringing in all voices to the table. It's bringing in and ensuring that everyone is represented. The part about equity is making sure that everyone has what they need and meeting people where they are. So sometimes we confuse equity with equality. So equality is giving everybody the same thing. But what if everybody doesn't need the same thing? What if some people need more and some people need less? equity is how we address those issues of needing more or less, because now you're able to see people individually and say, what is it that you need? Whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, not every student learns the same, those types of things. So we don't want to give everybody the same thing because some people might not need in the same way. So we want to make sure we differentiate equality from equity. And then inclusion. So inclusion is not just having people represented or different backgrounds represented. It's also including the voices and the belonging. Do I feel like I belong? Do I feel like I ought to be here, that I deserve to be here? Do I feel included? My voice, can I bring my whole self to this conversation? Can I bring my whole self to this space that I'm in? That's what inclusion is. And sometimes inclusion gets left out when we talk about diversity, because then with diversity, it can lead some to just check boxes and say, oh, we have somebody representing this background and somebody representing this background. But inclusion says, but are you hearing them? Are their voices valued? Do they feel like they belong here? That's a whole different conversation than just diversity. And that's why they all need to be together.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that we understand the difference, because sometimes we, for lack of a better word, we settle for just diversity, and that really, that's definitely not enough. So I appreciate you for giving those definitions. Combating institutional racism through mentoring. Why? Why this book? What inspired you to write this book?
So the inspiration, it started with my students. And then as I dug deeper, it took me back to my own experiences as a student. So I started this project as a dissertation when I was pursuing my PhD. And I interviewed students about their experiences. And a lot of times they were coming up with different challenges that they were facing while working with people who were supposed to be mentoring them. And then it took me back to my own experience and some other experiences of students, not even just in college, but taking it back to elementary school, middle school, high school, before you even get to college, those experiences, and how we help students navigate around the challenges that they may face when it comes to systemic racism. Sometimes you don't even know that's what it is. Especially as a young person, you might not even be able to put your finger on it, but you know that something is not right, and that's why I wanted to tell the stories as opposed to just talking about it. So I wanted to tell students stories. I wanted to tell, the stories of the mentors who've been doing it right, so that people can see this can be done, and it can be done in a way that it helps students navigate around all of these problems. And when I say combating, that word was so strong to me. I played around with the title a lot, and I kept coming back to it because we want to fight it. We want to push back on everything. And that was before everything is happening with the laws changing and things being overturned, by judges around, affirmative action and things like that. So this is way before that. But it fits because we do want to push back on that, and we do want to fight it, and we do want to combat the systemic racism that many say don't exist, right?
Right. And we can't, combating is a strong word, but we got to fight hard. So it's a great word for what this fight is. So you said you kind of, this started as your dissertation, and I guess it kind of grew its own legs and it became its own entity as an educator. So just wondering, when you were in school, did you attend a PWI or HBCU?
PWI.
Okay.
PWI.
So some of this was found out, I'm sure, because I also attended a PWI. So we learn a lot through deficiency, right?
Right.
Because you probably did not see a lot of educators who look like you, hence the lack of inclusion and equity, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Our school, you found people who look like you in the African American Studies department.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, when you went into other majors and stuff like that, it would be very different, you know. So yes, I went to a PWI. I went to also predominantly white high school. You know, I was in a school district that was predominantly white as well, and had to deal with navigating around some of those limitations, and the lack of diversity there. We had when I was there, we had one Black teacher, and he taught woodshop. There was the one Black teacher, and then we had one Black school counselor. So it was just this constantly seeing one, or none.
That's enough
right?
to say they had diversity.
Yes. Yeah. And then I also, realized when I became the one, then I get into these spaces as a professional, and now I'm the only one in certain departments, the only one in the room, the only one in the meetings. And I see how students are so inspired, but then also want to just be in the room with me and want to talk to me about my experiences and share their experiences. So you're constantly having to pour into those students as well, because you know that there's a limited resource.
So when you, it's interesting what you said about like your school,
Mm-hmm.
you saw, brown people and people of color in the African American. It's funny, when I was in college, my first year, I took an African American studies class, and the professor wasn't even Black. So
wow.
So it was like, this is strange.
Yeah.
It was like more of the same.
Right.
So in your book, you talk about like the mentors, and I think this is from the perspective of the mentor working with the mentee.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing you said was that the mentor needs to understand the background of the individual that they're mentoring. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for our viewers?
Yes. Mentors, I always say mentors can come from vast backgrounds. You don't have to be the same race or same gender or same age or older or younger. Mentors bring, new information, new opportunities, and a network. That's what the mentoring piece is. So the demographic of the mentor does not have to match the mentee. However, it is very important for the mentor to understand who their mentee is, who they are as a person, who they are, what they bring, what experiences they bring from their background. And if you don't understand that, it can create a disconnect. And one of the stories I tell in the book is with a Black male student who had at first a white faculty person mentoring them, who did not understand. There was a disconnect. They mistook his passion for anger and aggression. He talked about that a lot, about how he communicated. So even understanding how to communicate and the cultural differences in that aspect can create a disconnect. So it is very important for mentors to understand, and make attempts to understand who they are mentoring. It's not just about, oh, let me help you. And we have to also get away from that savior complex piece too.
Yeah.
You're not coming to save anyone. You're sharing expertise. The mentor-mentee relationship is one that is reciprocal. So we all get something out of it, right? The mentee is able to share experiences and give those experiences to a mentor, and vice versa. So it's very important to understand that as well.
Absolutely. And that so with that, there has to be a level of trust. I'll use my sister's example. My sister, undergrad, went to a PWI. Before her MD and her PhD, she went to a HBCU. And what I liked is that, and this connects exactly with what you're saying, you got to know where they come from. These mentors in her graduate studies or her doctoral studies, they understood that she had a different, or may have had a different need. You know, it wasn't always academic. Maybe she
Mm-hmm.
didn't even have money to buy
Mm-hmm.
meals for the rest of the week. And so the mentors became parents. And so that's one of the things I love about HBCUs. Although I didn't attend one, I paid money for my daughter to attend one, but they
Mm-hmm.
just seem to, um, people use mother or father, but it's not that. It's like they're relatable and they
Right.
understand the
Right.
struggle of these young people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So
Definitely.
do
And
you
I definitely
find, I'm
support
sorry.
that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I definitely support that. I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, I just think it's a really good thing. So when a student is looking for a mentor, what do
Mm-hmm.
you advise that student to kind of look towards?
So the first thing is reaching out to people who are in a place where you want to be or have experiences that can lend itself to where you want to be. So it could be career wise, it could be academically, even business wise. Like if you're, starting a business, you want to have a mentor that someone is successful in their business and can lend some information to you. So there's different aspects of it, but a mentor is someone who has these vast experiences, but they also can advocate for you, speak up for you, connect you to different resources. And so that's how you recognize who the person is. And then there's the reaching out part.
Okay.
Trying to connect with them in some way and let them know, like, hey, I'm interested. Eventually, I'm interested in you possibly being a mentor, because you want to assess whether or not they have the time to be able to share their time with you. They have to be able to say yes or no, I can do this. I've had students that were not my students reach out to me on LinkedIn, and because of what I post, it seemed to connect with a lot of what they wanted to do. So they would reach out to me, ask if I'm willing to have a phone call with them. And they will always offer a little bit. So they're like, just a 20-minute phone call. So it starts out as a 20-minute phone call, and then it allows for you to build on that if the relationship clicks in the right way.
Okay, so that's the kind of overview, and then we're going to delve deeper. So I have one more question before we bring on our special guest.
Mm-hmm.
And then because I'm forgetful, it just kind of escaped me. But okay, so you said a few seconds ago that the mentor doesn't have to necessarily, if you're an African American student, the mentor doesn't necessarily have to be. How
Right.
do you trust that? Because there are a lot of people who are not Black that act
Right.
like institutional racism does not exist.
Right.
So how do you find and kind of discern, and I mean, not even discern, how do you just get straight to the punch and say, hey, do you feel like institutional racism exists? Because if you feel like it doesn't, how can you help me combat it?
Exactly. So it does start with conversations and listening for those keywords, listening for their experiences, asking them their experiences with mentoring others. Who else have you mentored? Tell me a situation where you've had a successful mentoring relationship. What made it successful? So you kind of interview them almost like a job, because you want to get to know them and you want to understand their motive for wanting to mentor you. And then so you start listening for certain things. So if they start to say like, I want to help you get to where you want to be. I understand that there are some limitations and challenges that you face that I may not have, but I have a network and I have information and opportunities that can help you navigate that. So you start to listen for those types of impressions and in conversation with them to help you understand, okay, this person is for me. Like I can tell. And then you just give them a little opportunities to help you, and you see how they do. And if they don't communicate well, or if they or not getting back to you quickly, not responding to your whatever means of communication that you're using. And if they start saying certain things that just don't feel right to you, if it doesn't feel like they are respectful, because that's important. Just because you're a mentor and a mentee relationship, there's no authority differences there.
Right.
We should be respectful of one another. So there's no real hierarchy. That's not the type of relationship that it is. So if they start to talk that way, that might be a red flag of,
right. Because especially once we're in higher education, everybody's grown, right? So It should just be about respect.
Exactly.
So I want you to hang out because I need to bring on a very special guest. So I met this young man through my daughter, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And I think I have amazing friends. My daughter has some really dope friends. I'm going to use her
awesome.
word. She has some really dope friends. So I've been watching this person. We're Facebook friends. I don't know if he knows that I troll people on Facebook, but very recently he launched a book club that I thought was super amazing. And I thought it was quite fitting that he'd be on our show. So I'd like to introduce you to Brandon Love, otherwise known as B Love. Hello.
Peace. How y'all doing?
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for having me again. This is an honor.
So I do troll you and I watch your life and I see the baby because I think your son is like a couple months younger than my grandson. So I do watch your family. So y'all doing amazing things. So Brandon, tell us about this amazing book club that you recently started.
Yes, indeed. So I am excited and honored and privileged to launch Young Soldiers Book Club, YSBC. We are launching it in October 15th of this year, and we're going to extend it for 20 weeks until February 25th of next year. So the idea is taking a lot of elements from a rites of passage that I come from, my wellness warrior training, and giving our young men, our young soldiers ages 10 through 17, a safer space, a braver space to just breathe, read, reflect, and express. So again, that's just a question that I ask the community, like, where do our young men have a space to go to just release and just to be outside of their homes, outside of their school systems, outside of their peer groups? And where can we have a place where we can facilitate pretty much that wellness and that healing? So again, I'm really excited. It's going to be 20 weeks. We're going to meet on Sundays and Thursdays for an hour and 15 minutes each day, each week. And yeah, we're just going to dive into a book that I recently released, which is Love, Volume 1. So I took this book. Yes, indeed. I wrote this in 48 hours. I locked myself in my office in Chester, and I pretty much dug deep. Yes, indeed. I had to. God said, move, I moved. But I took this book, I wrote it, I edited, I formatted it, all myself in 48 hours. But pretty much the idea and the concept is to create a body of work that evolves with time. I realized that our attention span, young and older, is 15 seconds, especially with this new age of information, social media. Everybody needs it now. So I said, why does our literature fit the standards of older times? And we expect our children to sit down and read a book. So pretty much I created a book that's really just mixed match. It's like scrolling through memes all day, but in a literature format. It's pretty much graphics in it. You got to flip your book upside down, turn it in circles just to read it, pretty much get really engaging the youth. But I'm really excited to really dive into it because the body of work offers 10 perspectives that I've sat with over the last 25 years, and then also 10 bonus poems. And then in the very back, they have 10 spaces to journal and reflect. And to share their perspective on the topics that we're on.
That's important too.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So our youth, they're going to get, of course, their custom book. I have a journal called Reflect and Express in honor of my first TEDx talk that I did this April. And that has 47 prompts that really digs deep into those uncomfortable conversations to have with yourself. So they're going to get a copy of that. They're going to get their own custom yoga mat. They're going to get some uniform, make them feel good, look good, They are going to get a package of herbal teas from our herbal tea company, Love THC, so they can actually start to put the right things in their body as well, put them in their body mentally, physically, and holistically. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Cool.
Yes,
And
indeed.
so, I mean, the age that you choose, I think you said they start at 10, and that's such a critical age,
Hmm.
coming just post third grade,
Hmm.
where so many, things are determined, especially
Hmm.
based on our young Black men at their
Yep.
age, whether or not they can read. It's no secret that that's when you start, they start
Hmm.
Hmm.
planning for their
Prison system.
incarceration rate,
Most
10
definitely.
years from that age. So it's very important. And also, just getting young men to read. I know, and I mentioned on this show before, I homeschool my sons.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, you couldn't even find much information. I mean, they're in their 20s now. So it was hard to find books that with characters who look like them. So it's hard to get a 8-year-old boy to read Pippi Longstockings. He ain't trying to read
Right.
that. He can't
Right.
relate to that. So I think
Right.
what you're doing is so wonderful. So when I decided I wanted you on the show, you had to ask. You were
Hmm.
asking for help, and I want you to make your pitch right now. Tell us what you need and how we can help Young Soldiers Book Club grow.
100%. So yeah, I have no problem asking. It's funny. It's hard for me to ask anything for myself. But when it comes to these young kings in the city of Richmond, I will be vocal as possible. So with that being said, pretty much the majority of our young kings are signing up for scholarships. We have a slot of 20 spaces, but we also that's not a cap that we're putting on it. Ideally, we want to bring in as many young kings as we can. I have a lot of brothers, wellness warriors that's going to support me and help facilitating that. But we're asking for support in sponsoring a young king. Each young king takes $555 for the entire 20 weeks. So that's not a lot of money compared to how much money we spend back to school shopping on our students. So what I realize is, again, this investment is an investment that will last a lifetime. So I'm asking anybody, if you want to sponsor Young King, if you want to give $5, $10, $50, $5 million, I'm not going to block you. But
Yes.
whatever you can give to, again, pretty much make this as fruitful and as great of an experience as possible. I've ran many youth programs throughout my years, and one thing I realized is sustainability and funding is one of the biggest resources and lack of resources that we need, to not really give our students a little spoon feed of a program. Now I want to give them a whole plate. I want to give them a 4-course meal. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I'm calling on my community to donate, give from your hearts, give from your mind, give from your belly, wherever it comes from. And just support these young kings, because these young soldiers, like we were saying, we're combating racism. We need soldiers
Hmm.
right now. We need warriors right now. And we're building
Yes.
these warriors up in our community. So it takes work, it takes finances. And really, again, I just want to make sure this is as fruitful and as great of an experience as possible. So for 20 kids, it's $11,000 for 20 weeks. And again, I don't want to be a penny short. I don't want to do. I mean, I'm going to do it no matter what. But again, the more we have, the more we can impact our youth. So that's what we're here for.
Well, we're going to make sure you do it.
That's
Our team is phenomenal. Our viewers are great. They buy the books of the authors, and I know, you're going to get an outpouring of love. And so I so appreciate you. And so it wasn't accidentally that I chose you to be a part of this conversation, because I believe that a lot of us, back to you, Dr. Patterson, when we, young person, we're in college and we go to these PWIs, sometimes we're afraid, to
Hmm.
ask for help. We don't know
Yep.
who to ask for help. And I
Yep.
think what Brandon is doing with kids much younger, they're not quite ready
Hmm.
to go to college, but he's going to take them up to the doorstep. He's teaching them, to be comfortable making the acts. You got a big brother, you got somebody to help you. So how do you, this is for you, Dr. Patterson, how do
Hmm.
you, is it anything that we can do? Because I know when I went to the University of Virginia, very large school,
Hmm.
and it's just a small group of African Americans, small group of minorities, small group of African Americans, smaller group.
Right.
And
Right.
so, it's like, how do we know? Like, who do how, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
how do we know, or how do we become comfortable? It's like, okay, I need a mentor, and I'll.
Right.
Because all
Right.
our parents told us is you got 4 years to get up out of here.
Right. Right. Yeah. Um, Utilizing, now I'm gonna tell you what students do. The ones that really get the support they need, they are so they have so much perseverance where they are beelining it to whoever. They're looking on the website, they're checking whose office, who's where. When I came, I had um I had students come to my office. They knew I was on campus my first day. Like students were coming to my office. They heard there was a Black professor in this department. It was like, oh, there's a Black professor in this department. We got to go, meet with her. And I had students just come into my office, asking me all types of questions about myself, telling me, and my representation spans beyond being a Black woman. I had a son my sophomore year of college. So I have a lot of young mothers who are in school who beeline it to me as well, or they come to my office and they see pictures of my kids and they start asking me questions and things like that. And I remember when I first started teaching back in 2006, my son was probably 9 or 10. And his pictures were up in my office and the students would ask me, and I had a core group of mothers of sons who were in my classes, and I still keep in touch with them to this day, and they are doing phenomenally. But they came to my office, they noticed things about me, and they started asking questions. And then I would just have them come and we would do chats. We would just talk about life, talk about opportunities. I tell them about my experiences. I've had experiences where I was not given opportunities that I didn't know about them. You come on campus and people are like, oh, I'm doing this fellowship and this internship and this, and it's like, how did you know about that? Because they were talking to people and because maybe their parents knew and they had this extensive network, and not everybody comes on campus with that. So I always tell students, you can do this, you can go work for this person. I've had some students come with me to different meetings that I go to, just so they
That's
can
important because
meet
everything is not going to be learned in the classroom. So we can
exactly.
talk all day because this
Yes.
is such important information. I need y'all to pick up the book, y'all. Combating Institutional Racism Through Mentoring. Brandon, how do people donate?
www.bloveespeaks.com.
Okay, so we're gonna make sure
www.belovespeaks.com.
we get
Come
that.
find me.
Yes.
We're gonna get that on our post when we put this out because what you're doing is great. Dr. Patterson, I love you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Be
you.
loved.
Thanks
I
for
love
having
you.
me.
Thank you for everything you're doing. Richmond is not so much where I reside anymore, but Richmond is always home. So I always love what my folks are doing. Dr. Patterson, where can people get your book real quick?
You can get my book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. My website, you can Google it. It's out there. It's out there. You can
Everywhere
get it
that
from me.
sells books,
Yeah,
right?
it's out there. I do a lot of events. And I try to meet people and get the book out there. I'm selling them out the trunk of my car like Jay-Z did.
Yeah, they can find it. You look, if I found it, they can find it. I thank y'all so much for being on. If there are other authors who like to be a part of Books and Bottles, please hit us up at info@grosprod.com. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight to this very important conversation. Thank you so much for constantly supporting and sharing. Until next week, cheers.
Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first. Sign up now for free at Indie.